Imagine paying for something and not even realizing you're still paying for it. $9.99, $14.99, $19.99. One subscription doesn't feel dangerous, but add another, then another. Streaming, cloud storage, music, software, fitness apps, news, food boxes, gaming, and suddenly hundreds of dollars are leaving your account every year. The strange part? You might barely use any of them. And that's exactly what makes the subscription business model so powerful. Because companies don't just want you to buy something, they want you to never stop buying it. Welcome to the dark side of subscriptions. Because behind the convenience is one of the most powerful financial models ever created, and once you understand how it works, you may never look at that little subscribe button the same way again. Level 1. The perfect business model. Let's start with the obvious question. Why do companies love subscriptions so much? Because subscriptions transform unpredictable sales into predictable revenue. Imagine you sell software. Under the old model, you might sell someone a $300 license. They pay once, then you have to find another customer next month, and the month after that. But with subscriptions, you might charge $30 every month. Now one customer can generate $360 per year. And if you have 100,000 customers, that's $36 million in annual recurring revenue. Suddenly, the business becomes much easier to forecast. Investors love that. Banks love that. Executives love that. And perhaps most importantly, companies can calculate something incredibly valuable: customer lifetime value. If a customer pays $20 every month and stays for 3 years, that customer isn't worth $20. They're worth $720. So the company can spend hundreds of dollars acquiring that customer because they know the money may come back over time. This is one reason subscription companies can grow so aggressively. Adobe is a perfect example. The company moved heavily towards subscription-based software, turning products like Photoshop into recurring services. Its 2025 annual report shows subscription revenue dominating its business, with total revenue reaching about $23.8 billion. For customers, it's a monthly payment. For the company, it's an asset. But here's where things get interesting, because recurring revenue creates an entirely different incentive. The goal isn't simply to make you happy enough to buy. The goal is to make you stay. Level 2. The psychology of never canceling. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Subscription businesses don't necessarily need you to love their product every day. They just need you to keep paying. Think about the psychology. You sign up for a free trial, you plan to test the service, maybe for 7 days, then life happens. You get busy, you forget. The trial ends, your card gets charged, maybe $12. You don't notice. Next month, another $12. Still nothing. Eventually, you might notice. But by then, the company has already collected several payments. This is known as a negative option model. The default outcome is that the payment continues unless you actively stop it. And psychologically, doing nothing is incredibly easy. Canceling requires action. You have to remember. You have to log in. You have to find the settings. You have to make a decision. And humans are terrible at managing hundreds of tiny decisions. Economists sometimes describe this through the idea of limited attention. Your brain doesn't constantly monitor every recurring payment. It can't. There are too many. And businesses understand this. That's why the subscription model can be so powerful even when customers aren't highly engaged. You don't need someone to think, I absolutely love this product. You only need them to think, it's just $10. That's the magic. A small payment repeated hundreds of times can become a fortune. Level 3. The cancellation trap. But there's another layer. Getting someone to subscribe is one challenge. Getting them to cancel is another. And this is where something called dark patterns enters the story. Dark patterns are design choices that manipulate users into making decisions they might not otherwise make. The Federal Trade Commission has specifically highlighted subscription practices involving confusing disclosures, recurring charges, and difficult cancellation processes. Imagine the process. Signing up takes 30 seconds. Name, email, card, done. But canceling, maybe you have to enter your account. Find billing, click cancel. Then you're asked, are you sure? Then comes an offer. Get 50% off. Then another screen. Here's what you'll lose. Then another. Tell us why you're leaving. And another. Eventually, you give up. This isn't always illegal. And not every difficult cancellation process is intentionally manipulative. But when businesses deliberately make exiting harder than entering, the economics become obvious. Every additional obstacle creates another opportunity for the customer to stay. The FTC even announced a click-to-cancel rule designed to require sellers to make cancellation as easy as signing up. Why would regulators care? Because this isn't just about annoying buttons. It's about money. If 1 million customers pay $10 per month, that's $10 million every month. Now imagine that only a small percentage forget to cancel. The numbers become enormous. And this leads to one of the most important concepts in subscription economics: churn. Churn is the percentage of customers who leave. For a subscription company, churn is the enemy, because every canceled customer destroys future revenue. So companies constantly experiment with pricing, features, discounts, notifications, retention offers, everything designed to reduce churn. And that creates a fascinating conflict. The customer wants freedom to leave. The company wants the customer to stay. And sometimes, those goals collide. Level 4. The price you don't notice. Now let's go deeper. Because the subscription business model doesn't just change how companies collect money, it changes how consumers perceive prices. Imagine someone offers you a product for $240. You might hesitate. $240 feels expensive. But what if they say, only $20 per month? Suddenly, it feels affordable. Same $240. Different psychology. This is one of the greatest advantages of recurring pricing. It breaks a large cost into tiny pieces, and tiny costs are easier to ignore. $5 doesn't feel like much. $10 doesn't feel like much. $15 doesn't feel like much. But stack 20 of them together, and you've created a serious financial leak. This is why subscriptions can be particularly dangerous for people trying to build wealth. Building wealth isn't only about increasing income, it's also about controlling recurring expenses, because a recurring expense is different from a one-time purchase. Buy a $100 jacket, that's $100. But a $20 monthly subscription? That's $240 every year. Keep it for 5 years? $1,200. And that's before price increases. This is where subscription inflation becomes important. A customer may join at an attractive promotional price, then the introductory period ends. The price rises, the customer stays. Another increase comes later. And because the payment is automatic, the increase can disappear into the background. The FTC specifically warns consumers to check renewal prices because promotional rates can expire and automatic renewals may charge more than expected. The company isn't necessarily stealing your money. You're authorizing the transaction. That's what makes the model so powerful. The payment is legitimate. The question is whether you're paying attention. Level 5. When your subscription becomes the product. Now we reach the biggest reveal. The subscription isn't just a payment system. It can become a relationship system. Once a company knows you are a recurring customer, your behavior becomes incredibly valuable. How often do you use the service? What features do you use? When do you stop? What price makes you hesitate? What discount brings you back? What notification gets you to open the app? Every interaction produces information, and that information can help companies improve retention. Think about streaming platforms. They don't simply sell you movies, they study what you watch, when you stop watching, what you skip, what makes you return. The goal is simple: keep the relationship alive. Because the economics of subscriptions are built around the future. A traditional business asks, how much did we make today? A subscription business asks, how much can this customer be worth over the next 5 years? That's a radically different mindset, and it explains why some companies are willing to spend heavily to acquire customers. If the lifetime value is high enough, the initial acquisition cost becomes an investment. But there's a darker side, when growth becomes the priority. Companies can become obsessed with retention, and retention can slowly transform from, let's make the product better, into, how do we make leaving harder? That's the line consumers need to watch, because a great subscription business doesn't need to trap you. Its product should be good enough that you choose to stay. Conclusion: the subscription economy. Subscriptions aren't evil. In fact, they're one of the most useful business models ever created. They allow companies to build predictable revenue. They allow customers to spread payments. They can provide continuous updates, continuous service, continuous value. But the same system can be abused, and the danger isn't one $10 subscription. It's the accumulation. One forgotten payment, one automatic renewal, one price increase, one free trial, one service you barely use, repeated month after month, until your bank account is quietly funding products you've forgotten exist. For businesses, the lesson is powerful. Recurring revenue can create extraordinary wealth. But the strongest subscription businesses aren't built around making cancellation difficult. They're built around making the product difficult to live without. For consumers, the lesson is even simpler. Don't ask, can I afford $10 a month? Ask, do I want to spend $120 every year? And then ask the question that matters most, what happens if I keep paying for 5 years? Because in the subscription economy, the biggest financial decisions aren't always the ones you make. Sometimes, they're the ones you forget you made. And that is the dark side of subscriptions.